because my spidey senses say that this fall is when it happens. And August is typically that time of year that we see as fall, okay? Even though technically it doesn't begin until fall equinox on September 21st. However, it's interesting to me how Epstein is back in the headlines on July 8th. And it sparked panic in the machine. It rattled the intel networks. It woke up sleepers, and it makes everyone in the media world talk about Epstein, even louder than we already were. So, to all of my tinfoil hat friends and the panickers alike, I will ask you to please sit down and fasten your seatbelt because I think we're in for one hell of a ride. In other words, buckle up, Buttercup. So let's think about this. If you were aware that a federal prison surveillance system has a 1 minute blind spot every night at midnight, that's really all you would need. That 1 minute, 60 seconds window of time to quietly remove a high value asset. So I'm going to propose to you that Epstein didn't kill himself because he's not dead. Because my spidey senses say that this fall is when it happens. And August is typically that time of year that we see as fall, okay? Even though technically it doesn't begin until fall equinox on September 21st. However, it's interesting to me how Epstein is back in the headlines on July 8th. And it sparked panic in the machine. It rattled the intel networks. It woke up sleepers, and it makes everyone in the media world talk about Epstein, even louder than we already were. So, to all of my tinfoil hat friends and the panickers alike, I will ask you to please sit down and fasten your seatbelt because I think we're in for one hell of a ride. In other words, buckle up, Buttercup. So let's think about this. If you were aware that a federal prison surveillance system has a 1 minute blind spot every night at midnight, that's really all you would need. That 1 minute, 60 seconds window of time to quietly remove a high value asset. So I'm going to propose to you that Epstein didn't kill himself because he's not dead. His autopsy was never made public. I think that's important to note. And many of us suspected at the beginning. that that was the case, that somebody faked his death and got him out of there. Okay? So ask yourself, why fake a suicide? And why for Jeffrey Epstein? Why let him die under Trump's administration and Trump's DOJ? Nobody believes that Epstein was some rogue billionaire sex trafficker. Epstein was a deep cover intelligence asset for Mossad, most importantly, but also with the CIA. He was running elite blackmail operations, honey traps, and collecting tons of evidence on all of them that he himself labeled with yellow caution tape as evidence. Why would he have had tapes labeled with yellow caution tape and call them evidence? Unless maybe he was working with some good guys. And I'm not suggesting he was a good person or that he was willfully helping to bring down the bigger fish. I think he was forced to. I think he had no choice. We had him by the balls. So, this is a global trap house that we're talking about of the ruling class. It has its tentacles in everything. And in order to get the bigger fish, you got to have good bait and you got to have good evidence for it to hold up in court. So, who ran who? That's the real question here, right? You got Epstein. He was the blackmail broker, the sexual predator, and a very powerful laundering middleman. He had suspected ties to Mossad through Ghislaine's father, who was a media baron named Robert Maxwell, himself long suspected of being an Israeli asset. Okay. And he ended up dying a very mysterious death, Robert Maxwell. And so did Nicole Kidman's dad, who allegedly is or was the ringleader for the Australian end of all of this network. Both of them died under mysterious circumstances. Important things to know. So let me ask you, is it legally possible for the DOJ to fake a death of someone? The answer is yes. It's rare and it's always going to be classified, but it's absolutely possible. Under 18 USC 3521, it says that an AG is allowed to change the identity, relocate a witness, and operate under sealed records. National security exceptions under FISA, the Patriot Act, and prosecutorial discretion. Extreme covert measures, including fake deaths, can be justified to protect government interests. So legally grounded under prosecutorial discretion, doctrine of necessity, compelling government interest, national security mandates. These ops would be authorized by an attorney general or a deputy attorney general level person to coordinate with U.S. Marshals, FBI, and or CIA, and sealed underneath of lifetime classifications with no limit whatsoever. No FOIA requests will save you. Nothing. It has a lifetime classification of staying sealed um, until they want to change that narrative. Okay? So until you've got the other bad guys, mum's the word. And less than 10 people would have to know that to keep it safe. So, number one, weaponize the blackmail instead of burning it. If you seize the deep state's most powerful blackmail tool, you don't light it on fire in court. You aim it back at the people who built it. Epstein's Island was a honeypot fortress, much like the Playboy Mansion and Hugh Hefner and Victoria's Secrets with Lex Westman, right? I did a video about Heidi Klum and her bodyguard a while back. Uh, connections with Chris Cornell's mysterious passing. Okay, so Epstein's Island was a honeypot fortress with hidden cameras, controlled flights, and pre-selected victims, pre-compromised guests. Faking Epstein's death allowed Trump's DOJ to extract intel from Epstein, flip him into a ghost asset, and wield blackmail as leverage over politicians, media moguls, and foreign agents. And in the past year, we have seen a hell of a lot of CEOs and executives stepping down out of their positions out of the blue. So the result here would be hijack the deep state's nuke and turn it around on them. Number two would be avoid the global chaos. Control the world stage. You got to remember, this is a worldwide, global tentacles in everything outfit network. So Epstein's blackmail could collapse governments, dismantle markets, and ignite international crisis if we're not careful. So instead of public trials, we use the blackmail privately, we subdue hostile foreign elements, we broker backdoor peace and realignment without public panic, and we leverage the deals to end nuclear fears, endless wars, and human trafficking for good. Now, let's pause right there for a moment because we just blew up Iran's manufacturing of nuclear weapons. Trump has just ended a 30-year war between the Congo and Rwanda and an 18-year war in Afghanistan against the Taliban and ISIS. He's getting Israel and Iran into ceasefires. He is trying to end the war between the Ukraine and Russia. So he's ending all of these endless wars, right? Check. He's taken care of the worries over nuclear fears. Check. The next one, the third one on the list here, is the human trafficking, which is the big one. And they are the hunters. They're the true hunters that now become the hunted. Okay. So the result here is to leverage over exposure and order over chaos. Number three would be to seize the narrative, control, and silence the enemy. A public trial would have become a deep state circus. MSM manipulation, strategic leaks, foreign intel interference. It's a perfect environment for, an Arkansas, right? Or a Clinton body count list. By faking his death, Trump is able to control the operation, shield the investigation, and deny the enemy the stage. The result here is no leaks, no body, just silence. Fourth thing, time the truth like a tactical strike. So, in a 5G war or 5D chess, timing is everything. A trial, that would be static. But a controlled leak, a timed reveal, that's nuclear. Trump's team could drop partial truths at peak moments, hold the full release as the kill shot when public faith in the system fully collapses. Hello, what has just happened here? We have all said this would make us lose faith in Trump, right? This is when the system is collapsing. This is the dominoes falling. The result here is that you use truth as a sword, not a show. Ghislaine Maxwell is a dead giveaway here. If she has flipped, she'd be gone under a sealed deal. But she's still locked up and not a single elite name has been released. And important to also take note of that she too had a black book list of clients that was never submitted into court. And Comey's son-in-law is who tried her. They still have that information. Somewhere in the DOJ or the FBI or the CIA, someone has that black book that was never submitted into court as evidence. As a matter of fact, the counts that she was charged with are directly linked to Jeffrey Epstein himself, not to any other clients, even though her charges allude that she had more clients. None are listed, none are named, none were prosecuted. And I think that's an important thing to take note of too, because that means they still have firepower in their back pocket. And yes, I know we could go down the whole conspiracy road of it's been buried, it's been destroyed, it's been bit bleached, whatever. And sure, all of that could be possible, except ask yourself, does any of this feel right to you? That Bongino or Kash Patel or Pam Bondi or Trump would say, there's nothing to see here, and seriously be trying to dupe us? I think we know better about at least 3 out of 4. I know, Pam's questionable. Oh, Blondie Bondi. Binder Blondie Bondi. She's questionable. But the other 3, we don't have any question in their faith. And I don't think that they were all 3 compromised or some bigger fish has their foot on them, particularly Trump. I don't see how Trump would allow that type of chess move to happen. And yeah, he might be on the list of visiting the island and, you know, joining Jeffrey for dinner and different things. But again, just because you're on the flight log does not make you complicit and guilty of anything. I'm sure there's plenty of people that Jeffrey Epstein tried to blackmail, tried to honeypot trap into something so he would have some blackmail on them, and it didn't work. I mean, he wasn't doing things like Diddy where he drugged the baby oil and sprayed it all over him. But there's actually some connections to all of that I'm going to cover on another podcast because this is all connected. Okay. So what I'm getting to here is that the stuff about Ghislaine, that should tell you everything. She didn't flip, but Epstein did. And Trump's DOJ already had it all. And what did Q used to always tell us? That we have it all. We have it all. So my thought here is perhaps this is the real trust the plan. Strategic silence, legal authority, and information dominance. The question isn't if Epstein is alive at this point. The question is, what was done with what he gave them? And why on July 8th, Epstein is suddenly back in the headlines? Where have you seen July 8th and Epstein connected for years? Right, in Q posts, like I just showed you. So let's get into the so-called fake military operation that somehow keeps getting it right on Q. Indictment of Jeffrey Epstein is a placeholder. Q. That's a statement from Q. Indictment of Jeffrey Epstein is a placeholder. Epstein was a placeholder to get the bigger fish, which there were many of. So the Q boards have 32 posts total that have July 8th on them as the date. 8 of them mention Jeffrey Epstein directly, and several other drops have breadcrumbs tied to child trafficking, blackmail, and elite power structures. So if we connect just a few of those dots, we could talk about post number 3366, which is Lex Wexner, who is the founder of Victoria's Secrets. And in that post, Q writes, Les Wexner, founder of Victoria's Secret, connect the dots. Q. Epstein's financial handler and intelligence link. And then, of course, we have post number 3363, which is a photo of Bill Clinton with Rachel Chandler, which at the time was an underage person. Now, let me do a share screen here so that you can see these for yourself. You don't have to just take my word for it. Okay. So here is the post for 3366. Okay. And then 3363 is this photo. And if you'll remember, Epstein was quoted as saying, Bill likes 'em young. Right? Okay. Now, the next thing I want to show you is this.
And Fox News Digital has discovered exclusively that the FBI is now investigating the former CIA Director John Brennan and the former FBI Director James Comey in conjunction with the genesis of the Russia investigation. This comes after the CIA declassified last week a report into how that all came about. Let's bring in our panel to talk more about this. Annie Linsky, the White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, USA Today White House correspondent, Francesca Chambers, and Josh Holmes, co-host of the Ruthless podcast and former chief of staff to Senator Mitch McConnell. Annie, start us off here. The fact that the FBI is looking into Brennan and Comey now, when this declassified CIA report came out, people said, will prosecutions follow? We don't know if it'll be a prosecution, but it's an investigation at this point.
Yeah, this is certainly the logical next step from last week's news. And it does really underscore, I think, the extent to which this Russia investigation, that occurred in 2017, I believe, has stayed under the president's skin and sort of in his craw. He has personally sued members of the Pulitzer board for giving a Pulitzer Prize to the Washington Post and the New York Times, kind of surrounding on this topic. So I think this sort of move fits into this broader concern that the president has about this moment.
Josh, I talked to Ratcliffe about this declassified report last week. He said, look, this is the director of analysis. This is a person who's been at the CIA through several administrations and directors. He has full faith that this is an accurate report.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously new information, but it also corroborates what many of us who've been watching this since 2016 have known all along, which is you had nefarious actors within the intelligence.
We've known all along, okay? And yes, you could say, oh, well, but James Comey, he's being investigated right now, right? And he just did the whole seashell thing, 8647 and all that, right? But you have to keep in mind who he was taking orders from when he did all this Russia stuff. He was taking orders from Hillary and Obama. So in order to get the bigger fish, sometimes you got to start your investigations a little further down the food chain. And I think them coming out now as being investigated is a clear communication that this is beginning to start. And I would also like to point out a couple podcasts ago, about 4 or 5, 6 of them ago, I was talking about Trump and Melania both wearing the bright yellow clothes, the bright yellow tie and the bright yellow clothes, because that's symbolism in the Q posts for getting ready, that something big is getting ready to pop off. Okay, so we've been having communications, we've been having the comms, and maybe not paying attention to them close enough.
Intelligence community that were putting their thumb on the scale. I mean, recall just a trip down memory lane. It was Brennan himself who was the one who was pushing then Speaker Ryan and then Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to try to issue a statement before the 2016 election alleging Russian interference on behalf of President Trump. Now, obviously, they refused to do that, which then became a big discussion in the Comey, all the Comey investigation and everything else. But this is what kicked it off. It was very, very clearly an inside campaign hatched up somewhere. But these folks were in the middle of it, and I think this investigation is a long time coming.
Donald Trump insisted, Francesca, all along that there was nothing to this Russia collusion investigation. It would appear that history has proven him correct, and then you have to go back and wonder, well, how'd this all get going in the first place?
And to pick up on what Annie was saying, I mean, just today we heard the president again bring up during his cabinet meeting the Russia. So this is clearly something that he continues to be upset about. And you were talking about the last presidential campaign as well. I mean, this was something that he brought up repeatedly on the campaign trail and has talked about ad nauseum. So to Annie's point, to hear now that this is something that would be under investigation, which again, this is breaking news, is not particularly surprising.
Again, this is the beginning of an investigation. It could be a long way from a prosecution. Might never happen, but it's breaking news for us tonight. All right, let's go back to the cabinet meeting because both of you were in there today. Josh, you and I weren't.
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
I was last night. I was in the BB meeting last night.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Annie was in the cabinet meeting today. But you both talked to the president. You both got good quotes from him. Steve Witkoff, very optimistic that he might get a deal on Gaza. This is Francesca's wisdom last night, along with a couple of her colleagues, writing in USA Today about who would control security of Gaza if a deal is eventually struck. Netanyahu said Israel would have to retain control of security over Gaza rather than a complete state. I think the Palestinians should have all the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers to threaten us. He said that means a certain power, like overall security, will always remain in our hands. Now, that is a fact that no one in Israel will agree to anything else because we don't commit suicide. There was some talk that Israel didn't want to get bogged down in another occupation.
Now, I let that part play because I think it's important that we take note that Israel's being mentioned and that we don't commit suicide. All in the same fell swoop with everything else going on with Epstein didn't kill himself and Comey and Brennan being investigated now and so on and so forth. So, okay, I wanted to show you this too, just so that Again, you're not just taking my word for things, and you can see everything I'm saying I have backed up. Okay. Ghislaine Maxwell sentenced to 20 years in prison for conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to abuse minors. And then you go through all of this, and this is at justice.gov, right? You can go straight here and look at it. Matter of fact, you can just simply Google Ghislaine Maxwell sentencing, and this particular website will pull up for you. Okay, so it says specifically here, Maxwell and Epstein created a network of underage victims for Epstein to exploit. Okay, for Epstein to exploit. They didn't name anybody else there, which is also important to take note of. All right. Now, on the Sean Ryan show, a great question was asked. And we're going to take a look at that, and then we're going to take a look at some more Q posts.
Well, actually, Epstein has, I believe, 24 contact numbers for Clinton. William Barr, the Attorney General under Donald Trump, who covered up Epstein, was allowed to do whatever he wanted with Les Wexner's fortune, anything he wanted. But he circled a bunch of names that he saw had been involved with Epstein. William Barr, the Attorney General under Donald Trump, who covered up Epstein, and actually he covered up Franklin too, because he was the Attorney General under Bush 1 when the Franklin scandal was covered up. So he's a really dirty guy. I mean, and he's been involved in all kinds of other dirty stuff too. His dad was running Dalton shortly before Epstein got.
Okay. Now, he's going to cover all of the same things that I just covered in a previous video from yesterday. And it's all facts, except for the opinionated parts of it where, he's a dirty guy because he covered things up. Because if we look at this from a different lens, who does the Attorney General answer to? Who does the DOJ answer to? Who does the FBI answer to? Or the CIA or the NSA or any of them? They all answer to the Commander-in-Chief, Secretary of State, right? Secretary of Defense, people like that. There's higher tiers above them. If they're powerful people that have far-reaching tentacles, and you already are aware of that, you're going to follow orders to keep your own nose clean, okay? And this is something that Q would remind us of, that we cannot vilify every single person that was involved in any of this, because a lot of these people were forced, coerced, and blackmailed into what they were doing. So keep that in mind.
Got hired there. So people have speculated that his dad had something to do with Epstein getting hired, but we don't really know. But what's really interesting is William Barr's father wrote a sci-fi novel about intergalactic sex trafficking.
Okay. And I want you to really pay attention to this too. And again, I mentioned this book in my previous podcast, but I want you to listen to this closely because there's actually truth to this. And why in the hell would this man write a book telling about such things unless he found out that it's actually true? And we have people like Laura Eisenhower and Corey Good, regardless of how you feel about these people personally, they're fitting into this narrative here because they've been telling the public about already having colonies on Mars, the moon, and several other planets, including interstellar planetary visits and trade that's going on. Human trade as a commodity. They've been telling about this for years, and nobody believed them. This is important to pay attention to. Listen closely.
which is, you know, kind of strange. And then Jeffrey Epstein ends up working at Dalton, and then he has this. He gets involved in with a number of trading companies, and then ultimately,
Hold on, let me back that up.
Epstein got hired there. So people have speculated that his dad had something to do with Epstein getting hired, but we don't really know. But what's really interesting is William Barr's father wrote a sci-fi novel about intergalactic sex trafficking, which is, you know, kind of strange. And then Jeffrey Epstein ends up working at Dalton, and then he has this. He gets involved in with a number of trading companies, and then ultimately.
I mean, how does he get involved, though? I mean,
Well, that's the thing.
He's a college
I mean,
dropout. He gets put in there by Barr's. I'm sorry, did you say Barr's father?
It's people are surmising that it's Barr's father who got him a job at Dalton. And then he was in some trading companies. He was with Stephen Hoffenberg, who got busted. At that time, Hoffenberg was guilty of the largest Ponzi scheme ever. It was before Bernie Madoff. Now, with Hoffenberg, I met with Hoffenberg. He's dead now. But he said that Epstein was involved. But Epstein was allowed to skate. But the thing with Hoffenberg is,
And that's something else that we need to think about here is that every time Epstein got caught doing something, they were told, the people that were trying to prosecute him and charge him were told to back off of him because he was an intelligence asset. Now, we already know that he has, because of Ghislaine Maxwell, he has connections with Mossad, which is the Israeli equivalent of the CIA. Why wouldn't our CIA want to keep tabs on what's going on with a foreign intelligence platform, right? Gathering intel on numerous people and laying in wait to get them when they have enough evidence on everybody that they can nab them at once or very quickly simultaneously. And this is not a far reach to say this because there have been DEA agents that will play the role for 5 years, 10 years, 18 years to catch the bigger fish.
he was a very, very wealthy guy who did 18 years in prison. And I don't think he came out of prison as the paragon of sanity. So I never really knew what to make about what Hoffenberg was telling me.
Okay.
It could have been all true, or I don't know, but I think that Stephen Hoffenberg was psychologically troubled. And after he got out of prison. But where Epstein got his big break was in the early 90s. Les Wexner, who is the head of the Limited, Victoria's Secret, multi-billionaire, he gave Epstein the keys to his kingdom, power of attorney over everything. And Epstein was allowed to do whatever he wanted with Les Wexner's fortune, anything he wanted. He was given power of attorney.
I mean, but he didn't. I mean, he barely even knew him, correct? This wasn't even
they'd known each other for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. But I think Les Wexner is a pretty dirty guy. I mean, he's also been named as a perpetrator. And I do believe that he is a perpetrator. And he and Jeffrey
All of the angels and the Victoria's Secret models were being used as his honeypots. He's a very dirty guy, just like Hugh Hefner and his playboys, his bunnies, all honeypots, trying to frame and blackmail political figures, whoever, to get them by the balls, get their money, and make them do the things that they want to do to spin the narratives. And yeah, I think it's very possible that Epstein was an asset to help take down the bigger fish. I absolutely do.
Epstein. Les Wexner has a very interesting history. He's got a history with the mafia. There was an attorney whose law firm worked for Les Wexner's Limited. His name was Arthur Shapiro, and he was shot in the back of the head twice, execution style.
Again, another person that I mentioned in my previous video.
In Columbus, Ohio, which is where Wexner lives and where the Limited is headquartered. So,
And the Air Continental CIA airline.
And so it was very much a mafia hit. And
Air America.
there was a police report, a homicide report. I've got it, that came out, and it named Les Wexner as the chief suspect of that homicide. And it talked about all of Les Wexner's mafia connections, which I was able to corroborate. The police chief of Columbus ordered that homicide report to be destroyed. But I got a copy of it. So I'm good at getting stuff. So, but yeah, Les Wexner is the prime suspect as far as being the prime mover of that homicide, according to that homicide report.
Why do you think? I mean, what was his fortune? How much was it?
He's estimated to be worth at least $4 billion.
Why would he? I mean, is it blackmail? Why would he hand over the keys and give full power of attorney to Jeff Epstein, other than blackmail?
Blackmail.
Do you think it was blackmail?
It's either blackmail or they're both into something very sordid together. And here's what people don't understand about Epstein, and they didn't understand this about Franklin. Jeffrey Epstein was blackmailing some of the most powerful men in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, all you got to do is look at his black book and see that he was blackmailing some of the most powerful men in the world. Now, Jeffrey Epstein was a college dropout from working class Coney Island. Is Jeffrey Epstein going to be able to blackmail Les Wexner, who has connections to the mafia? There's no way in hell. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein would have a very brief life expectancy if he did that. But the thing about it is, if he's got an intelligence apparatus behind him, mm-hmm. and they make it known to whoever he's blackmailing, no one touches Jeffrey Epstein, or else pictures are going to come out, or whatever. I mean, that's the only way that Jeffrey Epstein is able to blackmail.
So you think that Jeffrey
It makes you untouchable.
Epstein had an intelligence organization behind him?
Oh, absolutely.
Or more than
no
one.
doubt about it.
U.S. intelligence organization or another country's?
Well, yeah, okay, so people speculate that it was Israeli and not American. But here's the thing about that, and I try to explain it to people. There's no way that American intelligence is going to let Israeli intelligence compromise American politicians without getting a cut of that intelligence. There's just no way.
I mean,
Right. And I'm sure that could work both ways, where they get a cut of it and they also get the names of the bigger, more dangerous people that are doing heinous, horrendous things. Because again, at the end of the day, I don't think that the CIA is this villain outfit that's going around and maiming children or intentionally trying to traffic anyone or whatever. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that there's that much truly evil people or that many truly evil people in the world that could be plausible. Do people do bad things? Absolutely. Sometimes they do it for their own benefit and power, and other times they do it because they're being told to. And if we're getting the bigger fish and we want to name names, then those names would be people like Dick Cheney or Bush or Obama or the Clintons. You see, bigger names, bigger people within our own country. There's, of course, plenty of others out there too, but I think Trump's people are trying to handle the American end of it as far as the arrests that get made. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this short here. You're welcome to go check out Sean Ryan's clip. This is clearly titled Who's on Jeffrey Epstein's List? Because I want to get to a few more things before I wrap this up, which I am about to do pretty soon. I want to share real quick some more Q posts so that you can see this right here, because this is important to understand. We have an FBI chain of command, okay, with James Comey at the top, Andrew McCabe, however you say his name, Lisa Page, Michael Steinbach, Jim Baker, Trisha Anderson, and then you've got, the counterintelligence divisions of Randy Coleman and Bill Priestap, and so on and so forth. Then we get down to Peter Strzok, and we have all of this information on these different people, right? We've got their texts and their emails and all these different things about how they're working together to stop Trump from becoming president and all of the different covert things that they're doing. So the chain of command is important. And then, interestingly enough, right there beside all of this is the storm has arrived. Okay. And again, on July 8th. So this says just because the public is unaware of something does not mean nothing is happening. And then this goes into the whole thing with Mueller and Comey and all of that, and the blackmail, right, at senior levels of government positions and 11th hour testimony. Then I will ask you to remember back to Bush Sr.'s funeral and how everyone was handed a letter. And this is not typical MO for a presidential funeral, for everyone to get a little letter inside of an envelope in the paperwork that you get at a funeral, right? That's got the itinerary of how it's all going to play out. So that's not a typical thing. I firmly still believe that Bush Sr. Made his video confessional and written confessional before death. I feel like No Name McCain did the same thing. And so I feel like everybody's got their forced testimonies because we gotcha, right? Some of the bigger fish, we had to get them out of the way because they could cause a lot of trouble. Now, one of the first Q posts that we ever saw, it said that in October, Hillary Clinton gets arrested. So I will ask you to bear with this until August and see if we don't start seeing things happen by the fall, because this very well could be our red October that we've been waiting for. In the next several podcasts, I'm going to be covering several things to connect all of these dots, including but not limited to honeypots and how they work and who the main honeypot umbrellas were. We're going to cover Kevin Spacey, Bill Barr, WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, Seth Rich, HRC's connection to all of it, the NSA, Five Eyes, Fusion GPS, Brett Barr, and we're going to cover the House of Cards being knocked down and why Israel is last and how exactly what's happening right now, present day, points to exactly that. So thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't already subscribed, I would greatly appreciate if you do that. I would also greatly appreciate you hitting that thumbs up, because every time you hit a like on a video, it helps the algorithm to share my videos on a wider range on YouTube. And let's get this out there, because it's important that we understand that there are comms being made, and it's time for the Anons to wake up. So in closing, I want to say to all of my fellow Anons, where are my Anons? Where's my bakers and my bread makers? Because we need you now more than ever. It's time to start showing those things that we had to make the backups and the hard copies and document. This is our time. This is showtime for us. So don't just sit back, buckle up, and get some popcorn. Roll your sleeves up and get your keyboards ready, because the iron is hot for striking. This is our time. Thanks for watching. Peace out. I'll be back real soon with a lot more.